Hello. So Pablo is forcing us to do a panel and not refusing to tell us what the panel is about. I have absolutely no clue what we're doing here, but it should be fun.
The fun is guaranteed. The signal is not. But
As long as we're not doing JavaScript again.
Too many people.
Yeah, no, come. We can sit more people.
Okay.
It's not that kind of conference. Here, there is a table here too. We can have one person here.
This is gonna be the funnest panel in the the whole conference.
And we're done. Okay. Do we have one more? X-Frog, are you around? Yeah, I think there is one around here somewhere.
Okay, I guess I don't know.
I think this is being streamed.
Of course.
Like live.
It's okay. Everybody's sleeping anyway. So.
That is true. Except for, 70% of the world's population.
Might just spread out a bit more. That's the most important.
All right.
You're good.
And I was told that yesterday I was told that this wasn't being recorded, so I was speaking much more freely than I normally would.
No, it's not just recorded, it's live. Unedited live.
So the spooks can get you when you leave the building.
That's right. I think I used the term feds yesterday in my presentation. Oops. All right, so
welcome to Nostr Review.
Oh, we're doing a Nostr
Review?
No,
we're not. We're not on the list.
Okay, so
yeah,
true.
Yeah. So the idea for this panel, this is called Nostr 201. Yesterday, Nostr.build did Nostr 101, just presenting a bunch of like microblogging applications and like the typical applications. But what I thought we could do today is talk about the other stuff and like dig a little bit deep on why build on Nostr, like what Archinox basically represents in the Nostr space with weird things, like really weird things.
So why don't we start just introducing the people?
Good idea. He's done this before.
Yeah. Okay. I'm G Sovereignty, and I do stuff.
He just never published.
He makes videos of people from creepy windows. I've been experienced that today.
Yeah, I do the Nostrovia podcast, and I'm working on Nostr Rocket, which is a thing I'm working on. I talked about it yesterday, and sometimes I just make fun of Pablo.
Okay, everybody does that. Who are you?
I am Pablo, the guy that everybody makes fun of, and I don't build Nostr Rocket because I like shipping things. It's something I do. Built a bunch of applications. I don't know, highlighter, whatever.
I'm Archinox. I'm working on Onosendai and Yonder and the Cyberspace protocol.
I really can't wait to hear about this. I'm GFG. I work on Lister and Ostrich work and some other things that I'm still working on that haven't shipped yet.
I'm in Wiki, figure out how to monetize my hobbies. Where do we start here? Why don't we hear about the Cyberspace protocol? I mean, that sounds something that is weird.
It's weird. Man, I don't want to give like a thesis seminar here, but
then don't.
Yeah, okay, I won't. I'll keep it simple.
Yes.
So Cyberspace is a protocol built on top of Nostr that enables a permissionless and thermodynamic metaverse. So what that means is it's permissionless like Nostr. It inherits that property from Nostr. So you don't need anyone's permission to use it or act within it. It's a 3D virtual space, and then all of your actions in cyberspace are done via proof of work. You publish a Nostr event to perform an action, and the proof of work on that action is the magnitude of your event, or of your action. The proof of work on the event is the magnitude of your action. And the reason why I set it up like that is because it's actually patterned after reality itself. In reality, you can expend energy to perform actions. You have to expend energy to perform actions. Everything you do, you have a cost paid to the universe in entropy. And in reality, everything is permissionless. Like, I can punch Pablo in the face, and he can only oppose me by also expending energy. He actually can't.
Yeah, but not if all of us
me.
do it at the same time.
Yo, yeah, I mean, but the point is that you can't prevent anyone from acting in reality. So reality is permissionless, and it's also thermodynamic. And so with Cyberspace, I'm creating this protocol that inherits this. It has the same two properties as reality, and so I refer to it as an extension of reality. And I believe that makes it a consequential metaverse, the first of its kind. Every other metaverse is bullshit because they're all based on access levels and permissions and artificial authority vested in
What
the
does this
people
look
who
like? Is it like Minecraft kind of thing, or is it just text-based?
So onosendai.tech is the current tech demo. If you go to onosendai.tech, you can check out kind of what it looks like. But the look of it is not specified in the protocol. So someone else could like make the Unreal Engine 5 version of Cyberspace if they wanted, which would be really cool. I'm going for like a retro 80s vibe. And so everything kind of looks like wireframes and neon.
So if somebody does Call of Duty on it, do you actually die if you die?
That's opt-in.
And how about carrying ammo? Can you carry all that ammo?
Well, you have to do proof of work for how much you can carry.
Okay.
But it's all regulated by proof of work.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So wait a second. If like that idea of like the Unreal 5 engine of it, like how are, because I think I've got in my mind a mental picture because I've played around with it. Like how are events placed? Like how are things put around this 3D space?
So you also use proof of work to claim space in cyberspace. You can actually do that right now by going to construct.onosendai.tech. And then so you mine an event called a construct, a 331. And the amount of proof of work on that event is the size of the space that you claim. And so once you claim that space, you can't do it yet because I'm still working on the spec, but you'll be able to put objects and interactive stuff inside of your construct. And that's how you create interactive objects. You could theoretically create a game or some other utility or a shop or whatever you want. I want to just mention that like a lot of people think that I'm working on this for purposes of gaming. And I don't think about this in terms of gaming at all. This is like it's like a fundamental utility that humanity can use for anything. Gaming
what kind
is
of mining
one.
do you have on it?
It's just the NIP13.
Okay. So like, don't you think that like the issue here is that like now you're just competing for resources that people would probably be putting towards like Bitcoin mining, for example?
I am increasing demand for hash power.
Yeah, but people are not making sats, right? Like from that, because right now
Yeah.
you can put very little sort of mining capability towards making sats on Bitcoin, right? Through mining pools and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like, have you thought about maybe like changing it to let's just bike shed your wonderful project, like maybe fidelity bonds or something like that. So no, seriously, because then like you're essentially leveraging like all the Bitcoin proof of work, right? That you get by using the Bitcoin money, right? And then sort of like that route instead
So
of
you
having people.
use money to power it instead of proof of work.
Well, it's a proof of work money. To
Yeah.
power.
I mean, no, I get it. Part of the reason why I want to use proof of work in the way that I am is because it is keeping it very, very simple in terms of implementation and onboarding and usage. Settling every action you do when you're doing multiple tens of actions per second, settling that to the time chain in some way, or handling invoices for all of that could be problematic.
Yeah, no, I asked because like many years ago when Cloudflare was sort of coming out, we thought that why don't we just do proof of work on the browser? We created a project. It was like Cloudfire or something like that, and you could mine like it would force your browser to mine a little bit, right? Expend some proof of work so that you could prove that you were not a spammer, right? Or like fake accounts trying to DDoS our website at that time.
Yeah.
And we found that most users are just not willing to go there, but they're willing to park some sats.
Yeah. I mean, I've already had a lot of people mining constructs for cyberspace, so that's
cool.
It's going well. Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I just want to see if this will work. It's obviously an experiment, and I think that if the proof of work does work out in the way that I'm hoping, then it'll actually only complement Bitcoin in terms of the hash power distribution, I think.
That's very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
And have you thought about changing the, not using NIP13, using some kind of non-Bitcoin hashing?
I mean, actually, I need to use, I want to use Bitcoin hashing SHA-256 because I want people to be able to repurpose their ASICs if they want to power their cyberspace interactions. I actually have a buddy who has an S9, and we're going to try to get it to Mayan cyberspace events so that he can like zoom through cyberspace at ultra speed with
That
his
is
S9.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's going to be OP.
Like old Bitcoin hardware, sort of, it becomes pointless pretty fast, right? I mean, electricity versus what you get out of those, it's a very fast dying proposition here. So yeah, I mean, it's fun.
And when you think about the, you mentioned that you don't see gaming as the goal of this. What do you envision? If it works in 5 years or 10 years, what would that look like?
I see cyberspace primarily as a place of business and also of people coming together and communicating and organizing. It creates an environment outside of physical reality that you can be around somebody and interact with them without having to be physically near them on the planet. And I know we have a lot of other ways to do that through video chats and text messaging and stuff, but the fact that you can't be in a place in cyberspace without expending the energy to get there. There's no teleportation, or you can't be in two places at once. It makes the space consequential. It makes your travels and where you're at consequential, and it makes who you're with consequential. So, yeah, I mean, I think business like Lightning stores that are virtual and in cyberspace, where you could actually go there in cyberspace, and then the proprietor is controlling an avatar in that store, and you could talk to them, and you could buy products by zapping them, right? In this 3D experience. That's just kind of an idea of what I hope to see. But, I mean, if people make games too, that's fine. I just think that it's going to be the games are going to be computationally expensive on purpose, so I don't know if that's a great idea. But.
Do you guys remember all the KVM stuff? Was it KVM? I can't remember now. All the 3D sort of want to make 3D web back in the 90s. Yahoo had a whole sort of.
I remember VHTML.
VHTML.
That.
Yeah, I mean, this was people tried to go there. I mean, the hardware was just not there yet.
No.
But
well, neither was the just doing it in the browser. I mean,
yeah.
It was very, very rudimentary. Yeah. But somebody was.
It's cool. I don't know. You got that sort of cypher, more like cyberpunk than cypherpunk vibes.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Appreciate it.
And why? No, let's keep going with you. Why are you building it on Nostr? What properties of Nostr?
Yeah, it's the permissionless and the permissionless nature of it. It's Nostr is like a communication protocol. It's a permissionless communication protocol, and I just found that the combination of being able to easily add proof of work within Nostr and the fact that it's kind of got this standard that other people can utilize, the interoperability, I just feel like it's just the best. I can't think of anything else out there that would kind of be up to the task of kind of supporting this sort of mesh-based reality built with these other event kinds and how you can trivially link them in a hash chain, and yeah, it's just the right tool for the job. But I mean, maybe there's something else out there, but I just want to be part of this ecosystem because I feel like it's going to benefit everybody. Everything benefits from each other, But I think the main thing is the permissionless and the thermodynamic properties make it a really, really good fit.
And do you see any issues with the lack of timing? Because I know that for the movement, you're tagging the previous events, so that's fine. But do you see the root event having a weird time being an issue?
Yeah, I'm going for soft consensus on what I call your action chain, which is the events you publish that are, it's a hash chain, so every event references the previous event. It's soft consensus because it's not in the time chain. It's not anchored anywhere. So your action chain is really only your truth that you publish, But the good thing is that there's a lot of restrictions on what constitutes a valid action chain, and it's pretty easy to screw it up if you try to do like a timing attack or modify your events. If you fork your action chain at all, it invalidates the whole thing. So you can only publish one event referencing the previous one. And since Nostr events don't really get deleted, it's like really easy to find out if someone forked their action chain. So there's all these conditions that make a valid action chain, and every event has to follow the next one in terms of the timestamp. So the timestamp kind of doesn't matter, and it's all kind of the root event matters. Yeah.
I can claim like I mine like these entire.
I don't think a lot of people, I mean, maybe in this specific room, but the people watching even understand the fact that like Nostr has no time.
Yeah.
And it's the most fascinating thing. Like all messaging requires time in order to work, right? Mostly because they don't have an encapsulated, encrypted sort of message, right? And like Nostr exists in this sort of completely timeless universe. That's why you can use it in space, right? You can send a message from, the aliens are coming. You send a message and it gets relayed. A year later shows up on Earth. They send a spaceship through time, right? You can exist in multiple timelines because it is a self-contained node. So it's kind of interesting that you're adding, you're kind of like re-adding a little bit of a constraint on time again, but it's relative time, it's not absolute time.
Yeah, and that's why I call it soft consensus, because it is relative, but you have to commit so much proof of work and you have to commit to this hash chain that it makes it difficult to really kind of game it in order to gain an advantage against someone else. It could happen. There is one particular attack that I kind of found when I was kind of thinking through this, which I refer to as an echo attack, where you'd be able to publish you would create valid events, but you would withhold them, and they'd be events that affect someone else.
It's like ghost blocks.
And so, basically.
What's that?
A ghost block.
Yeah, it's essentially like you mine the blocks, but you don't release them.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then you mine on top of them, and you create a long chain.
Yeah.
And then you're like, boom.
Yeah. But the nice thing, though, is that you can't fork your action chain. And so if you notice someone near you not publishing events suddenly, you kind of know that they're doing that. And so what you can do is you can publish echo resistance, which is an additional form of proof of work on your action chain. And that makes it so that all those events that you publish are immune to whatever effects their events would have. So once they do publish it, then you're like, oh, well, I'm immune because I published this extra proof of work for it.
Very cool. That's definitely categorized as a weird project. Fantastic.
Yep.
Any
That's other stuff for you.
Yeah, no, it's like the other stuff really is. It should be it's the 90%, right? Like
it's really, really awesome that it's modeled on reality. Like proof of work is how we, like your opening statement basically, like proof of work is how we do things in reality. Like.
And that's how we punch Pablo. Yeah.
I think like having that at the core that's the key.
It's the inverse of fiat.
Yeah. So this you might find this interesting. So Bitcoin captured the time dimension in a digital system. It's the time chain. I feel like cyberspace captures as well as it can the spatial dimensions in a digital system. And now, because they're both thermodynamic, we have all dimensions of reality captured in a digital system, which I think is super interesting, if you think about it from a dimensional perspective.
Have you considered using NIPO3 to anchor the root event? NIPO3 is an open timestamp, so you anchor, like you cannot fake the timing of the event. I mean, you can fake it, but only with your own range.
I looked into open timestamps and NIPO3, and you're going to be publishing too many events too quickly to use it for all of your events. But I like the idea. I like the root event. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I also think that you could potentially anchor like a batch of events or just the most recent event at any arbitrary interval.
You don't even need that. I mean, if they're linked together, like.
But the root event would be great.
Yeah, just the root event.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think I'm gonna consider adding that.
So what about also like so you have a chain of events, because I've been thinking about this as well, right? And
nice.
So are you putting like a replaceable? So what I'm doing with my thing is like I also have event chains, and like I'm using like a head event to point to the latest tip of your chain, just as a convenience thing, really, to know that you're at the top, like a replaceable event to point to the head of the chain, so that like you've reached the current tip.
Yeah, I remember talking to you about that, and I haven't quite figured out how to make that work for it. So maybe we should talk more about that.
Okay.
Because I think it's a good idea, but I'm not exactly sure how to implement it.
Oh, well, that's pretty trivial, actually.
Well, I know, but I guess I just want to think through all like the.
We arrived at that point of the bike shedding now.
No, it's fine.
Just grab the laptop.
I'm just very like thorough when I'm thinking through how this stuff works, and I haven't digested that idea fully. So
I wanted to ask Pablo, or anyone. I haven't really looked at open timestamps. What exactly is it like? Hashing a bunch of stuff into an op return or something? Like what's happening there?
Yeah, so it commits to an op return. It's really old, so it doesn't use Taproot or anything. So it basically what you get is you submit to a calendar. Like the spec is really weird, but you submit to a calendar that whatever you want to hash. For NIPO3, you just hash the event ID. Simple. And what you get back is a bunch of instructions on how to construct the proof. Right, so it's basically like the instructions on how to get to a Merkle leaf. So it's append this, prepend this, append this, and it gives you like a bunch of hashes, and then you get the one that you wanted to hash, and then you need to so it gives you the proof. On NIPO3, you base 64, put it on the content, and then for NIPO3 you need to commit the verified, so you need to wait until that op return is mined.
Okay.
And once it's mined, that's what you
But
publish.
the block nonce is part of the recoverability, right?
What's that?
The block nonce is part of the recoverability.
I don't know what goes inside the verified, but I'm guessing, yeah.
Well, for the people that don't know, like open timestamps, like if you had to oversimplify it, it's like how can I get the most amount of data, right, and stick it into the 32 bytes that go into an op return. So that's why you have all this hashing, rehashing, hashing, rehashing. Yeah, exactly. But then just the very last little bit goes onto the chain.
didn't Pablo say he was working on modifying or updating NIPO3?
No, so VHF, so NIPO3 was basically like unimplementable. And then VHF tried to use it and realized that it didn't make any sense. So he rewrote it, and then he implemented it in Go, and realized that
Which is an awesome language.
yes,
Nobody uses.
I heard that all the Google people love it, so I'm guessing it's fantastic. So
Actually, nobody uses Google either.
it's VHF and this guy.
That's it.
So he implemented a Go library to do open timestamp and a command line that is very useful. And now I'm re-implementing the library that Peter Todd wrote because it's like really old. It's really
Peter
bad.
Todd wrote it in there.
It's the end of it. Yeah. So because I want to make NIPO3 great again. So I'm going to add NIPO3 support to NDK, so you could say like event.stamp, and you get a proof that is that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, right? Because I think there's a lot of things that we can do if we have like this anchoring to Bitcoin.
You have to simplify the Bitcoin insanity into like a very very simple call. Like there is no other way, or people won't use it.
That's why I'm kind of avoided that.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like it's anybody who has constructed a Bitcoin transaction by hand understands serialization is not trivial. And money gone.
I mean, it's not that bad, right? You just like using the CLI, like you just like it gives you all the instructions for what you need to do there.
With CLI.
Oh, I mean, you know.
You mean like the Bitcoin CLI?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's different for open timestamps. Like you need to.
Oh,
encrypt
okay.
the
No,
open
because we're
timestamp
talking
spec.
about like putting. Yeah. You know what I mean.
All right. So next weird project.
Next weird project. I mean, we can stay on you, right? Or with I already forgot the name of the Yonder.
Yonder.
Okay, so explain what it is.
Sure. So, I mean, so Yonder is my mapping client. I just announced it yesterday. You can go to go.yonder.me, and you can put places on the global map. You can just basically, it's like Google Maps, but without Google. So you can create places instantly.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's just initial version, I'm going to be adding
Dude, I love
augmented reality navigation to it, which I already have. And so there's an old version of Yonder that's like a Web 2 version. But that one actually has the augmented reality. It's all web-based. So I'm going to be bringing that to the new one.
I'm a very practical person in terms of just being practical here. So like I use, I'm here in Japan. I can't understand the characters, right? So I go to places, I save them on Google Maps, right? I've been doing that for years.
Yep.
And then I have these clusters of like neighborhoods that clearly I like it because there's all these pins on it, right? Like it would be really cool now if I can sort of like I have these pins, but they live as Nostr nodes.
Yep.
And then everybody has their pins on it, and like now you just reconstructed the most amazing map ever.
And you can put your places, your pins on the map into a list and share that as a world for other people to like filter down all the noise and just focus on those pins.
And you can also have a private list too for other places that you don't want people to know that
exactly,
you go to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, the really cool thing is that it's built with the same. You're using the same thermodynamic protocol in Yonder.
Yes, right? Yes. So Cyberspace is technically also part of Yonder because Cyberspace actually has two halves to it. There's a purely virtual space where all points do not correspond with a point of reality, and then there's the augmented reality side of Cyberspace where all points do correspond with a point in reality. So Yonder is the real side.
So what you're really saying is that people can have the Pokemon game. Remember the virtual one, but like in the AR one that you're doing in person.
Yes.
But now it costs you proof of work to go get the Pikachu.
Yes. If they want to build that, yeah.
I mean, like
it'd be fun.
People were really into that.
Yeah, so. No, it's cool. I mean, Pokemon Go is a huge inspiration. But I've been working on augmented reality before that was a thing. I promise you, I can prove it. I have a commit history.
That's okay. We're not judging on those terms.
Yeah, I know. You're just judging me on other terms. I get it.
Yeah.
What exactly was it an inspiration for?
Was what an inspiration?
Pokemon
Go. I mean, it was just cool to see augmented reality become mainstream. Mm-hmm. That was really the first thing that people, and so the reason why we started Innovator, which is my augmented reality company, is because we saw the value in augmented reality as a communication tool, but nobody was doing anything substantial or meaningful with it. It was all gimmicks. And we wanted to make...
Are you behind Pokemon Go?
Yes, that's my... No, I'm just kidding. No, I didn't... No.
Can you explain a little bit that difference between the, like corresponding to places in physical space or virtual space versus the rest of it? Because I think that piece, you got a couple diagrams on the site, or I don't know where I came across them that make sense. But I think hearing that just kind of doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I get it. So every coordinate in cyberspace is derived from a 256-bit number, and the very last bit, the 1 or 0, determines whether it's in data space or idea space. Data space is the real side of cyberspace, like in reality, augmented reality, and idea space is the purely virtual side of cyberspace. So that last bit in the coordinate tells you which plane. It's called a plane. That's what I call it. And so you can take any 256-bit number and then translate that into one of the planes of cyberspace and then find the 3D coordinate as well.
Are those related at all? Like, do they, like I'm imagining planes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm imagining planes like, above one another, and like that point can, like you punch through both pieces of paper.
Yeah, so actually if you want to travel between planes in cyberspace, you create an object that I haven't finished the spec for called a portal. And the distance between the two...
Best names ever.
The distance between the entrance and the exit is... the longer the distance is between the entrance and the exit on the two planes, the more proof of work it requires to create the portal. So if it's a direct hole punch between the two planes, it'll be a minimal...
Very easy.
Yeah.
But like, what are the uses? I think the obvious one with Yonder is like the real world, corresponds to real physical space in the world. Mm-hmm. Do you imagine that the other plane is literally just sort of a virtual but much larger kind of copy? Like that's just a subset of what is in the virtual only space.
Kind of, but I do think that they both stand on their own. So the interesting thing about the real space, the data space, is that there's a very limited amount of virtual space on the surface of the planet that we would consider usable, because the actual cyberspace size, it like fits the whole Earth in it in like a cube. And so if you want to claim space on the surface of the Earth where people are going to be walking and seeing things, you have to do a lot of proof of work to get that exact surface area. So if I recommend everybody go mine cyberspace real estate in Times Square right now and then you can sell ads, and you will be rich. I promise.
So what you're saying is that if like a big mining pool comes in, they can do a Dyson sphere and kill everybody?
I mean, only virtually. You just
Virtually,
you
yeah.
respawn.
Okay,
Yeah,
so there is respawn.
Yeah, there's respawning.
But not with the same key, right?
Yeah, you get the same key. Yeah.
Oh, so it's okay. So it's not quite full.
You lose all of your proof of work stuff,
Okay.
except for your constructs. I thought that would be.
So it's Counter-Strike. You come back naked.
Yeah. Yep. It's Counter-Strike.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Just as long as you don't kill us all, it's okay.
I don't plan on it. Yeah. Another cool thing about cyberspace is the idea that AIs could exist in a place. You could have an AI controlling proof of work systems to move through cyberspace, and it can you can limit it so it only interacts with people in its vicinity.
So it's like those AIs that are in the bar, you know, like a John Wick kind of style. You know, there's a bartender AI, and he lives.
Yeah,
in
he
that
could be
hotel.
at a place. Yeah, you could have like a geocentric, like spatially restricted AIs.
So that's kind of cool. I mean, like I'd love to see how the kids play this.
It's definitely out there. That's why I always use your stuff like the other stuff like this. Whatever Architects is working on, that's like.
You know, it's so early. Now is the time to make the weird stuff.
Oh yeah, totally.
You know, because then there's going to be stage C, D, E in the conferences, and the weird stuff just keeps on being pushed to the further away stage.
Until it's out on the tent.
That's right.
Under the bridge. All right, and now it's like the opposite side of the other stuff. So that's your stuff. So explain Nose Rocket. I think you're gonna love this.
How is it the opposite side?
Well, it's like the whole DAO thing. I think it's very far from what he's building. It's like human organization. I don't know. It's like very, very, very different. But it's also in the other stuff, right?
Yeah, it's definitely other stuff. Yeah, Nostr Rocket is basically a way to organize human action towards shared goals. I hate talking about it. It's great that Archinox is here.
I'm his like hype man, and I kind of translate for him when he's going, and
You need that. He should be your co-founder.
I basically am at this point.
Yeah.
There you go. So think about how do you organize people to do things? You make a company, right? Companies are now obsolete thanks to Nostr Rocket. Nostr Rocket is a completely flat, completely sovereign, individually sovereign organizational structure where people opt in and contribute to a project without any permission or coordination, and then they earn like merits, or they earn ownership of that project through their contributions. And
How do you account for that? Like, say, for example, is it, you know, if I made one commit, or if I made 10 commits, or like how do you sort of
you know how much you know the value of your work. And so you basically state that, and then
and people agree or don't agree.
There's a request.
Yeah.
You put in a request to get merits, and then they can approve or reject it.
And
so
if
if it's
they-
on the roadmap, then it will probably get approved.
Roadmap.
Roadmap, yeah.
But you know, like companies work because like it's essentially a benevolent dictatorship, right?
Yeah, which I love. But
No, I mean there is no other way
Stalin.
to write good code or have good products.
no, I
It's
totally disagree. I totally disagree.
Okay.
It does work and it does solve problems, but I think we can do things from the ground up. The way that like humans solve problems the same way that ants kind of find food. You go out and you solve problems that are like very close to you, and that gives like a path that other humans can follow, just like ants follow the same path.
Who had that quote? Somebody said the specialization is for insects. Humans should be generalists.
We kind of are just big insects, right?
Well, no, but
Maybe you are.
I mean, I see where you're going.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Archinox, don't put the mic down. You're going to talk more about this.
No, I like the mechanics. Like the mechanics are great, right? I think like there is two approaches for making things, right? Like you have the cathedral and you have the bazaar.
Yep.
Like those things sort of tend to encompass the most amount of things. Of course, there's a lot of weird stuff that doesn't fit quite right, but that's the reason why, for example, FreeBSD works and Linux doesn't, right? Like, always. You gotta get it in there, FreeBSD. But no, jokes aside, it's cool that you're building infrastructure, right, for making the bazaar style like exist and work like within like a Nostr sort of framework.
And to make a global marketplace for labor that anyone can opt into and just, yeah.
No, like, I mean, I like the idea, and I've gone through this with G a few times. I think I stumble over the same thing that NVK is stumbling over, which is, like, it's horrifically inefficient, and humans are horrifically lazy. And so I think the whole idea that, like, you're going to go and you're going to find these things and you're going to submit and, like, maybe it's just the tooling is really, you have to make that really, really good to make that work. But I just don't see people being like, okay, now I'm going to go submit my work task for this 12 minutes that I spent doing, X, Y, or Z, typo fix in a README or something, right?
Well, I mean, it's just like sending a pull request.
Yeah, here. Yeah. So, like, one interesting thing that happened when stocks came about, right? So, like, Holland, what is it, 1400, 1500, something like that. Indian company. Anyways, they figure out, hey, like, we can essentially like optimize for capital creation, right? Like. By selling shares, right? And if people want to do it as through work, right? Like they do the work, they get the money, they give the money, and then like it's essentially proof of work to a certain extent. And what's really cool about that is if you had a amount of work that bought that share at any point in the existence of that entity, right? Like you make some money back. But the cool thing is, if you stop buying shares, eventually you find some dilution, right? And this is how you normally sort of like start, like, because if the company is good, right, even if they dilute their shareholders, right, the price still goes up and sort of like saves the people at the bottom, right, that they got a little bit diluted, but it really rewards the people who are recapitalizing the company to do new cool things, right? So anyways, like, are any of these dynamics, like, into this?
Yeah, totally. Because, so, like, you could kind of think of it the same way, but, like, the shares are produced in response to problems being solved. And those problems are in the critical path towards more users and more revenue.
So you are diluting, essentially...
Every pull request, or whatever you want to call it, is, like, diluting the existing sort of shares.
But it's the shareholders who are approving the request to dilute their own shares.
So Berkshire, it's kind of interesting, right? Their shares are like, 500K per share, right? Like, but what's cool is that if you have a share, you have voting rights. But you can't convert that to, like a million non-voting shares, but you can't go back. So you can split your share to sell pieces of it if you want to, but you lose your voting rights.
So, okay, in Nostr, the way we deal with that is because you don't want people to have like voting rights and then vote for something that's good for them but bad
democracy
for the company.
Doesn't work.
It does not work. It does not work. I totally agree. This is why benevolent dictatorships are okay.
Yeah.
So like,
we love you, Fiat Jeff.
So yeah. Peace.
He's the CEO. He's not a dictator.
So you have like in Nostr, there's a concept called lead time, which is difficult to explain but easy to read. But basically,
try in farmers' terms.
Okay, so you have merits. You can either sell them, or if you apply lead time, you can't sell them, but you get more voting power.
Yeah, and then it's
almost like the same thing as Berkshire.
Yeah, and
it's funny. These things, like, people naturally gravitate to these things. Like insects do that. Like seriously, like there's just like a spontaneous order tends to sort of like it exists in trends, right, that are sort of inherent to the speech type.
Yeah, like simple rules that lead to complex outcomes. So yeah. Do you want to say, because you're putting your projects on Nostr?
Yeah, the Cyberspace protocol, Yonder, and Onosendai, the Cyberspace client for VR. Those are all Nostr projects. So I technically don't own those anymore. I'm giving them to everyone who wants to contribute, and if you contribute, you can become just as much of an owner of the projects as I am. I will continue to increase my ownership by contributing to the projects, not because I created them, but because I'm actually working on them. And that's what Nostr Rocket. You kind of let go of that control, but you gain the incentivization of other people to join.
Last question. How do you, because I think you pitch Nostr Rocket much better than this guy. How do you, like, how do you set the vision? Because I didn't buy the insect thing.
We're not insects. No. That's why.
So how do you set the vision? For example, in your case with Yander and Ono Sendai, like how do you say, okay, this is where it needs to go, given that you are not the one, like you're not the owner and all this stuff?
Yeah, technically, if it's under Nostr Rocket, I shouldn't be completely dictating the vision. The vision is according to the people who want to contribute. I can tell people what I think, but there's nothing in the Nostr Rocket protocol that prevents them from also helping set the vision by putting in pull requests that add new features or take it in a different direction. And if I don't agree with where that's going, I can either suck it up or I can fork the project again and start over with a new.
So can you branch off of a certain commit on like Nostr Rocket and then create, like you keep everything and you duplicate the shares?
Yeah, I could do Yonder 2. The rebellion, and then I could just start my own
so
if I didn't like where I was going.
This is kind of interesting because Git is decentralized, right? GitHub is not, but everybody lives in GitHub because it's great. I mean, don't worry, Microsoft will ruin it. But if we continue on this trend that we do have a GitHub-like sort of like good solution on Nostr, it gets weird in a cool way, right? Because now like those commits are like intrinsic to the protocol itself, and you can sort of quantify, qualify, and sort of create all the interesting economics on it.
That'll blow the doors open.
But like a good commit probably removes a comma, as opposed to like adds another 10,000 lines of code.
All right, we are passing the mic.
Kicked out. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.